Hey, welcome to Backyard Bows. I'm Brandon, and we are finally going to shift back gears to a little bit more expensive. Some of those flagship bows that we finally got in. We're kind of been bouncing back and forth between the flagship bows and the budget bows, just which ones come in first. We add them to our lineup. So the next month is going to be awesome. We got the Hoyt RX7 up today. Next week we got the Levitate, and then we got the Prime Inline, and then we got the Solution SS. So we just got, this next month is going to be a blast doing these. I think this bow was probably the hardest bow to keep my hands off of, because it's been sitting up there on the rack for about 2 weeks while we've wrapped up some of those budget bows. And then after the Solution SS, hopefully some more of the budget bows that you guys requested in the comments will be in, and we'll kind of follow up with some of those. But these next 2 weeks are going to be probably the ones that I've been the most excited about. We're going to kind of do a comparison. So I've shot all of the RXs from Hoyt. I have never shot, I've never owned. I've shot one of the carbons from PSE in a bow shop, but very, very little. So I got a lot of experience with the Hoyt carbons, very little with the PSE carbon, which will be up next week, the Levitate. So it'll be nice to kind of compare those two for you. And kind of see the difference, which is something I've always been interested in. So, the carbons from Hoyt this year, you got the RX7, which is pretty much the alpha from years past. It's the shorter axle to axle at 30 inches. Then you have the Ultra, which is at 34 inches axle to axle this year, and then the Twin Turbo, which is at 33 inches axle to axle. So, after looking at them online, I really like the turbos, but it has such a short brace height, and you're only getting, I think, 8 extra feet per second. So this gets 342 IBO rating, and then the Twin Turbo is at 350. So to me, I had a just instinctual feeling that this would be a lot more comfortable, a little bit more forgiving. So I went with this of those three for this year. So this is kind of a perfect hunting bow for me. 6¼ inch brace height, 30 inches axle to axle. It weighs 3.8 pounds with that Redworks carbon riser. Some of the things that we've seen from last year that got carried over, these shortstop stabilizers, which is really, really cool. When we did the Venom Pro 33 earlier this year, I kind of mixed it up. So I put the stabilizer on with the shortstop, switched them, shot it with just the shortstop, just the stabilizer. And what I found with the Venom Pro 33 is that I actually liked a stabilizer and the shortstop on there at the same time. But with just sighting this in, I've shot it a little bit. I think I'm going to shoot this one with just the shortstop stabilizer on her, which I think felt the best to me, but also just to mix it up from the last review we did on the Hoyt. Another thing is that grip. Man, I cannot talk more highly about this grip. Not just the material, which supposedly you get water, sweat, whatever, liquid you get on there, it still grips your hand the same, but the shape of it is by far, to me, the best grip that we've done yet. And the grip is something that always seems to stand out a little bit more to me than other things, going from one review to the next. So, and then you got the Piccatelli rail on here on the front for the inlining of the sight. It's machined into the aluminum riser, the Venoms, but this one is, you don't have to buy it and attach it now. It comes on it, but it is, bolted onto the side of it. It's not machined into that carbon. And then you got these dampening systems tucked in behind these limbs on either side. You got the blocks in between the limbs, which all, with working in sync with that carbon riser. I have a feeling there's going to be no vibration with this thing. And then I've talked about it a lot, but the Hoyts have my favorite limb pockets where the risers meet the limbs. I think it's the most secure system that gives it the most support. If you look up under here, it has a little liner, and then it has a part that's notched out to keep that, limb from shifting back and forth, which is what you want. And then, your cable guard is tucked in really nice and tight to that carbon riser. It's bolted onto the side. But complete system, I think it's the most durable, and we'll kind of see that quality grade probably at the peak. So, and then, which I also talked a ton about with the Venom, is these HBX cams. Loved them with the Venom Pro 33. Very different from the cam and a half system that they used in the past, but they added this new engine to all of their bows. I'm excited to see how it shoots with this. But man, I really love the way it felt, the way it held, the draw, everything on these cams, I enjoyed. You got the one cam size, you got 2 mods for different draw lengths, which this goes from 25 to 30. Mine goes from 28.5 to 30, and then the 28 down to 25 is the other mod. So simple, 2 screws, rotate it, very easy to use. It does have a option for 80% or 85%, and it actually just is written on the draw stop on the back. So that's an easy switch there as well. And I'm so excited to shoot this and to get outside and do our freestyle shoot. So let's do our single shot assessment in here. We'll take it outside and we will spend the majority of the day shooting. It's beautiful, it's springtime. A lot of these reviews were done in the winter, which, you know, I really pumped some arrows through some of those bows, but man, it got tougher and tougher as the winter, you know, some of those colder days that we reviewed. Today is gonna be quite a bit more enjoyable. Beautiful day, everything's in bloom. The backyard is popping. So let's do a couple shots in here. We'll give you our initial thoughts. Man, the grip, favorite. It's really nice and light. I love that there's no stabilizer on the front. That's gonna take a little bit less weight as well. I think with the quiver, which they have these really cool quivers, which I mentioned in the Venom Pro, I just forgot to. But you know, you can adjust them left and right to kind of help perfectly balance that bow. So everything that they've been doing, you know, Hoyt lately, Matthews, is just kind of figuring out you know, to make it as most convenient for us, the hunters and the shooters, to figure out how to balance your bow perfectly. And I love that. So I don't have that Hoyt quiver, but man, that seems really cool that you can kind of adjust it to balance the bow out. It kind of has the place for the back bar in here that's set into that bottom piece of the riser, again, to kind of help you balance it out. I love this just how it is. No stabilizer, one sight. This is just perfect. But let's shoot a couple. So, man, the hold, this thing just balances out perfectly right from the beginning. And the draw is so much nicer. So even this bow that gets a little bit higher speeds, it's kind of pushing more one of that speed bow type. The draw is really, really smooth. It's a heavy start, and then about right there, it kind of goes back on you. The transition is nice, and it's heavier in the beginning, lighter in the end, but it flows really nice together, you know. And that's what I was saying earlier with the brace height of that twin turbo. Even those 8 feet per second, I could imagine that draw cycle would be very different. And is it worth 8 feet per second? I don't know. So I'm excited to put this through the chronograph later and see what it gets, but I think these speeds are gonna be plenty. And then to have such a smooth draw, you know, a nice solid hold, I think this would just be the better bow to go with. But I guess it all just depends on what you're hunting and your preference. But man, this hold, rock solid. I love that. That is awesome. The balance is great. And the draw cycle, I just love these new cams that they put on these. This new HPX cam, I think, is one of the best moves that they've made in a while. I talked it up with the Venom Pro 33, but man, this is just an awesome cam system. Super simple, super easy to tune. Keeps those cams nice and balanced and tuned probably for longer, just the way it's set up. I love these systems. But the draw is just, you know, I'm not gonna say it's silky smooth, but I mean, that's incredibly smooth. And again, the draw is just preference to me. It doesn't really have anything to do with the shot. You know, it's, and with the consistency and the success of your hunt, the draw is all preference. And man, that's, for a bow that gets these speeds, that's the best draw I think you're gonna get. But the hold is what's the best part. The grip, the hold, kind of the balancing. Once you're there, I mean, this thing is just, it kind of takes effort to get it unbalanced, which is, you know, not something you see very much. So let's go outside. We're about to have a ton of fun. These next weeks, I cannot wait for the weekend. Every week, we work all week to get to the weekend, to give you guys these bow reviews, and to get outside, do a whole bunch of shooting, give you some good feedback. So let's get to slinging some arrows. All right, so on to the fun part. We'll shoot after everything like we do. If you haven't, we started reviewing these in like January and February. It's cold, and man, it was fun, but like this is so much more my style. Sun's out, everything's in full bloom. These next so many reviews before the heat of the summer comes are gonna be my favorite. So I'm excited today to get to shoot at all of our 3D targets and really get after it. I have a feeling I'm gonna put a ton of arrows through this thing today, but we'll do some here on film. So we'll go turkey, boar, buck, coyote, then we'll do broadhead, buck, black bear, elk like we do, and we'll just kind of go right through them. Man, so I think my favorite part, like I said inside, is the hold. When this thing sets up, it is rock solid, which probably plays the biggest part into consistency of your groupings of your shots, is how steady the bow holds. Best hold yet. I think my other favorite thing about this bow right now, I do a ton of climbing in. I love that I don't have a stabilizer hanging off the front of this thing. So, you know, there's nothing past here, so there's nothing far sticking out. You know, and that's just due to, the areas that I hunt and shoot, I climb in 95% of the time. So, mostly because the tree stands, I maybe don't even have access to the ones that are set on the properties that I hunt, or I don't like the placement of them. I always bring a climber in, super nice, compact, light bow, and I love that there's nothing hanging off of this thing. It's gonna be easy to pull up into a stand, into a tree, where again, sometimes I'm picking trees and climbing in where I don't have a ton of time to trim up a lot. I love that there's nothing hanging off that potentially get in my way of shooting. So that's like something else that I've noticed that I really, really like. Man, the draw, again, I mentioned it so much with the Venom Pro 33. I love the new draw with these new cams on these Hoyts. You know, this one a little bit more than the Venom Pro 33, a little bit tougher at the beginning, smooths out really, really nice towards the end, and then once you're in your back wall, you're really solid. And it holds, like I said, just rock solid. You have to put effort to unbalance the bow. Where when this thing is in full draw, I mean, it's the most comfortable, solid feeling. Your pin's dialed down, it levels out. I love that. I love that. You know, and without having to put a stabilizer on there, again, just less weight. So maybe with this sight, if I had a quiver full of arrows, you're in the mid 4 pounds. I mean, that is awesome for a fully loaded bow that you're gonna hunt with and climb in with. So we'll step over to the coyote, and then we'll get over there and do some of the longer shots. Man, and this thing, you can feel the strength of it without feeling, usually a really high speed bow that packs a punch, you're gonna kind of feel it in your hand. This is minimal feeling in your hand, but you can also just tell that it is just shooting. I mean, this thing is a little hammer. Okay, so days like today, we will shoot all day. I mentioned this a couple videos back. I love the initial shots, those single shot assessments. I think there's so much you can learn from them, especially about the true way the bow feels to you. It's hard for me to give you a performance grade until we have shot several arrows through the bow. So we'll shoot all day. And then we come back, and we do this for every bow. We don't just shoot them a couple times and give you a review. We'll shoot them 150, 200 times. And then when we feel comfortable enough to give you the performance after some thought, we'll give you the grade. So broadhead, buck, bear, then we'll go elk, then we'll shut them off. We'll shoot a whole bunch more. I'm excited to see what this thing gets. On the speed test, the only other, bow that I think this is gonna get up to is maybe like the SR350, maybe those mid 280s with my 500 grade arrow. The RX4 Turbo got like 288, almost pushing 290. I think this will be right in those mid 280s, but we'll see. So hold's the best part about it. Absolutely rock solid hold. And I think that's the biggest contributor into your, you know, the consistency of your shots. It's how you're holding the bow. The shot cycle, you know, all of that kind of goes into the timing of the bow and how well it's tuned. And then the draw, to be honest, to me, it's just preference. The draw cycle, unless it's really harsh and jerky and that might spook something and give you away, the draw cycle's preference. So when it comes to hunting, the hold is, to me, the best part, and that plays the biggest factor into that performance side of the grade. So no vibration in the hand. For such a high speed bow, usually you get a little bit more kick, especially from a Hoyt, but man, these new cams that they've come out with, this carbon riser, this is probably one of the most comfortable bows to shoot. So we'll put a couple into the bear, which is at 40, and then we'll get after that 50 shot. But it's not a speed bow, but it is pretty fast. I mean, the only difference between this and the twin turbo, I think the twin turbo, you got a nice longer axle to act, but it's only 8 feet per second on the IBO rating. 342 is, and this is perfect. I went with the compact bow just because of the style of hunting I'm gonna be doing with it. But I mean, you cannot beat the speeds you're gonna get for the draw and the hold on this thing. I mean, this is top premium bow right here. And this is just, and this thing shoots darts. So like I said before, usually when you get high speeds on a bow, you know, the draw cycle becomes a little bit harsher, a little bit more rigid, and then you can feel it in the shot cycle because you're trying to get those peak speeds. So, you know, the example I would say is the RX4 Turbo that we reviewed in the beginning. You know, you could feel it in the shot cycle that this thing was pumping a really fast arrow. This is so much more cleaner and still reaching those peak speeds. So let us set up and we'll get up to the elk. The elk shots at 50. Favorite target here in the backyard to shoot at. The majority of our shots after the camera goes off will be on the elk and the black bear. And we'll kind of jump around all day, but these are kind of the ones where we focus the most. I think, let me shoot one and then we'll. I think if you asked any of my friends, people I've hunted with in camps, you know, and I've shot several different bows, so it's not limited to Matthew and Hoyt, but if you asked them if I was a Matthew or a Hoyt guy, they would tell you I was probably a Matthew guy. Because I've shot so many more Matthews than I have Hoyt over the years. I love both manufacturers. I think they both create great bows. I've loved, you know, certain bows more than others, but I think in a nutshell, they do a great job. But I think they tell you I was a Matthews guy. So when I say this next part, just keep that in mind. This is my favorite bow I've shot yet. This is an absolutely perfect bow to me. So this is just a preference thing. To me, my style of hunting, what I'm gonna use it for in the fall. And I'll tell you right now, first day of hunting season this fall, this is the bow that's gonna be in my hand. I mean, this bow sets up better than any bow we've shot so far. It gets those high speeds that we're looking for. Not necessary, you know, they're not necessary, but man, if you can get those high speeds with as comfortable as this is, why not, you know? So this is the most complete bow that we have reviewed to date. And it's always hard, you know, I'm comparing this to every bow that I've shot. So I can't sit here and tell you that this is the GOAT because I haven't shot every bow out there. But from my experience, this is not only one of the best bows we reviewed, but one of the best bows I've put my hands on in my hunting career. This is just, it's so easy to dial in and it's so comfortable in full draw. That's my favorite part. And I think that's the most important part if you're, you know, successful hunt or you're 3D shooting or whatever. The most consistency is gonna come from how a bow holds. And then to have a really nice smooth draw cycle on such a high speed bow is just kind of a bonus to me. But the hold is, and once you get it in full draw, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. It just settles down really nice and easily. It's comfortable, nice solid back wall. And then the shot cycle, once you get this thing tuned up and the timing right, the shot cycle is so clean with such little vibration in your hand. So we're gonna get after some shooting. I'm excited to see what it gets in the chronograph, and then we'll give it that grade, which I have a feeling might be a little premature, but it'll probably be up there with the top bows. I think the only other bow that's the highest ranking bow we have is a 94, and that's the V3X from Matthews, but I think it'll be up there. So, all right, so we always do this last right before we go into the grading, final piece of the puzzle. Speed test, 500 grain arrow, 29.5 inch draw, 85% let off at 70 pounds. My prediction, I think I said earlier, I'm gonna go 282. We'll see. .281, man, I'm getting better and better at guessing. Trying to compare IBO ratings to what I've been getting for myself, but I'm getting better and better. So 281, so that's right there with the SR350. Man, that's solid. That's solid. That's like exactly what I would want to see. Everything else on the bow has just kind of blown me away. And then to final it, you know, the final piece to get 282 with my arrow, you can't beat it. This thing is going to absolutely hammer something this fall. Let's do a couple just to be sure. That's 287. So that's up there. You know, I'm okay with the 5 pound fluctuation. When it starts getting over 10, I'm thinking it's the chronograph instead of the bow, but it could fluctuate a little bit. So that's up there with the XR, the RX4 Turbo. So let's do a couple more now that it jumped around. So that's 289. I'm gonna shoot one more. I want this thing to get over 280. And again, it just shows you the IBO rating, it's not always gonna be the exact once you bump up the weight of the arrow. Some bows, and this is just my personal assessment, some bows are just stronger than others. So even though you're bumping up the arrow, it'll kind of keep higher speeds where some bows don't. So let's see if we can get 290. Nope, so that's back down to 280. So a little bit of fluctuation. Since we had a couple on the higher end, I would say it's the bow fluctuating a little bit than the chronograph, but like I do, sometimes I can't stop. Let's just shoot one more just to see. So that's 287. So yeah, I mean, this is, no matter what, let's say mid 280s, this bow is, I mean, this is solid as you can get. So, all right, so that was a fun day of shooting this bow. I shot it a bunch. I actually, any bow that kind of gets a hard to get it started at the beginning and that kind of smooths out at the end of the draw, you shoot it a bunch, man, it starts to wear on you. So I'm actually, my shoulder's a little sore from that. I think we know this is gonna get a high grade. Take into consideration when we give these grades, this is just my personal opinion of the bow, a little assessment at the end. I'm a numbers guy, I like to throw a number at things. But this is going to be, you know, high on our scale for grading. So right off the bat, mid 280s, anywhere from 280 to 290, I give you the full 10 out of 10. If you get above 290, which we've yet to have a bow do with my draw weight, draw length, let off, 500 grain arrow, you know, I haven't had anything get above 290. The RX4 Turbo got 288. This hit a couple high numbers, but I think more average right about the mid 280s. Which was right about where I guessed. So it got the 10 out of 10 for that. Quality, again, I've talked about this before with these carbons from Hoyt. You can't get a better quality bow from the riser to the cable guard, the cams, the limb pockets, everything top notch. Shooting them, carrying them, right when they get into your hand, they just feel, I mean, you cannot get a more solid bow. So 10 out of 10 for that as well. Appeal, highest grade I'm gonna give something, you know, this gets the 9 out of 10 for me. I love this bow. I love, you know, Hoyt has my favorite solid camo color, or my favorite solid colors, but I got a full Realtree Edge setup, you know, setup that I like to hunt in come fall. And I have a feeling I'm going to be getting in a tree with this. So I went with the Realtree Edge. It actually had a ton of detail on this camo, and that kind of stood out to me too. So I went with the camo, but they have some great options. I think they have 11 color options that you can choose from, including solid colors and camos. And then technology. The carbon obviously is some of the highest grade material that we're seeing today. I love these new HBX cams. Simple to use, simple to tune, doesn't have a self-tuning system. And obviously because of the carbon riser, top of the line with technology, it gets the 9 out of 10. And then you have the performance. So it's hard for me to give a bow a 10 out of 10 in performance. Out of all the bows that we shot, maybe I won't call this the GOAT, but maybe the greatest of all the bows that we've reviewed to date. So this has been my favorite bow so far. We'll be hunting with it for sure come fall. I loved everything about it. The performance, and the most important part of the performance to me, the whole 10 out of 10 on that particular category. It felt the best in full draw. It's set up really, really nice and solid. I think, and again, we talked about this a lot with the budget bows, but just practicing and consistent practicing with whatever you're gonna shoot, you're gonna get good at. I think that if I put some real good effort and time in with this bow, I could get some great groupings. A fun bow to shoot, nice smooth draw, very little vibration in the hand. So overall, 9 out of 10, which is probably the best, you know, performance grade that we're gonna give, but the best you can get. So if I could give it a 9.5, I would. So overall rating, so a 47, it gets the +1 because of the price tag of about $1,800, $1,850. So you get the nice overall grading of a 96 out of 100, which is the top grade that we've given a bow to date. Fantastic bow from Hoyt here. Make sure you get into a bow shop, get tons of bows in your hand. Don't buy a bow for single bow review. Make sure you get your reps in on the daily, and we'll see you next Saturday.